How you doing, Audrey?
All right, how are you?
Good.
All right, talk again, Brian.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is Garrett gonna be with picture or no picture?
Thanks, Garrett, are you there with us?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. I call a meeting of capital plan to order at 5:02, February 7th. In your emails and on the table here are packets of information that the town manager provided us on how we looked at the funding mechanisms for this year's capital plan, and I will defer to the town manager to give us the rundown on how he came about all of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was one minor change from what I'd emailed. The amount that we had forecasted in the funding table for the 5-year borrowing reduced by about $100,000. There was an error in one of the cells that wasn't breaking it out into a 5-year payment. So that number decreased to 230, which now even more comfortably fits within our available debt. We were carrying in our 5-year forecast about $815,000. Now you have to keep in mind there are prior year projects that are still rolling through there, so this number should keep us pretty close to that. We are also recommending utilizing about $720,000 worth of free cash. Our current balance is $1,417,000.
I'm sorry, one more time?
$1,417,601.
601, thank you.
That is the number after taking out the 3 financial policies that just went through. So we're already funding the stabilization account, the separation account, and the OPEB account, and then we land on that number. So if you take away the $720,847 that I'm recommending, that brings it to $696,754, which after the May town meeting, free cash was at $627,705. So after all that, after funding this plan and after the 3 new financial policies, our free cash is still higher than it was last year, or it will be higher than it was last year. So we're still inching towards growing that. The other benefit, we can't really bank on it at the moment, but there's cannabis funds. The shop just opened last week that will be rolling in for a partial year that will fall to free cash because we didn't have a full fiscal year to actually account for it. And so that will bolster those numbers a little bit next year as well. One unique thing that we're looking at this year that wasn't here in years prior and won't be here much longer is the use of Arpa funding. So we're recommending the use of $490,000. That will reduce the full ARPA amount to about $1.25 million. The projects that we slated for ARPA are items that fall squarely within ARPA's guidelines, so things like infrastructure improvements or equipment for infrastructure improvements. The benefit of using the funds is that you are, I guess it's on a couple different levels. One, you are upgrading your fleet, so you're sparing yourself from having future issues with older equipment and the cost that comes with that. You're also sparing yourself from having to replace it in future years because you have it in hand. And then the other benefit is you're not adding that to your 5-year borrowing, so you're reducing that number by a little bit as well. So there's definitely some benefit there. And then the 2 other funding sources, one is for the Transfer Station Enterprise Fund because that enterprise fund is healthy and does generate a little bit of revenue, so we can fit that comfortably. And the cruiser replacement, which is typically, as past practice, funded through the 911 grant. So that brings the total recommended for 2023 to $1,552,356. I do want to note that in the capital improvement plan, there are a handful of small changes, tightening of scope and whatnot, but 2 of the larger ones was the Blair Square Phase 3 pre-design at $130,000. We surrendered that and are going to move it back to next year and take this year to try to identify alternative funding sources, grants or otherwise for that. and the salt shed, which was about $300,000. I had a good conversation with Mr. Croto, and he and I are gonna look for ways to do that cheaper, for the same end result over this next year and put it into the capital plan for next year. So I carried that $300,000 in next year, but I would expect that number to go down relatively significantly. There are some other small ones like the cupola repair. I reduced from 39,000 to 35. I'm pretty confident I can do it in that number. And then we incorporated, at the request of Selectman LaBrie, the full item cost up front, because I know sometimes it's like a little bit of a shell game. There's a lot of moving parts. So we added an additional column beyond that showing the additional funding sources. So for example, Mr. Croto went back and got trade-in costs for some of the vehicles, $20,000 for one, $18,000 for another. The diesel vehicle needs to be destroyed, so there's no trade-in value for that one. We also highlighted that there were some grants. The radio project, for example, has $230,000 from the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation, so we highlighted that. Under the library, I know that it had come up that 70 Pleasant Street was, that it was impending, that it was going to be off the market, so I put a call into the Realtor first thing in the morning and confirmed that it was something that was still in play. So we're going to be moving forward through that process. It's on the agenda for the Selectmen meeting upcoming on the 14th, and it will also be on the Redevelopment Authority's agenda for the 28th to review the potential purchase of that property. Obviously, we can't make a commitment until we have a town meeting vote in May, so that's a little bit of the rub there, is that we can't really put the cart before the horse, but we can do everything else that we have to do in the meantime. There was about $70,000 remaining from the Beals Phase 1 restoration when they put in the elevator, and we put that, or factored that into the purchase price as well, so we picked up $70,000 there. That was being held back for the purposes of the eventual future children's library. So there's no sense in going out to borrow an additional 70 if you have it in hand. So we wanted to put that to work. And beyond that, that's all of the significant changes. So if the committee has any questions, I would happily answer them at this time. Oh, excuse me. There's one more, the supplemental road paving. We knocked the 2 last roads off that list and added Maple Street, so it brought that number down a little bit. The reason we added Maple Street is because the state has paved a significant portion from the White's Mills pretty much all the way down to the Winchendon Community Park, but the stretch from there to Central Street is unpaved. Central Street is about to be paved in the spring, and in addition, we received grant funds to redo sidewalks and other infrastructure on that stretch of Maple Street, but that grant doesn't cover the actual paving costs of the road itself. So we did that last second change as well. And so with that, that is the last significant change. So if anybody has any questions, by all means.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the floor.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I have one question and one comment. The question is, when you're looking at the recommended amount for 2023, it doesn't include, we're borrowing on several of these items, and it doesn't include the total cost to the town in that column, only the cost this year. So should that be, it's $700,000 or $800,000, should that be reflected someplace?
Sure, that's a great question. So on the vertical page, the items that were put into 5 years, we did break out. So for example, number 2, the DPW roof. So we took essentially the entire project costs, added 5% to account roughly for what the borrowing costs would be, and then divided that over 5 years. So it does carry through the 5-year plan, because we wanted to make sure that that didn't just evaporate and get lost. We can add a column showing the, true value amount or something like that, and then have the actual funded value amount or something along those lines, so that there's no confusion.
Sure, 'cause, I mean, we're making a commitment for 2.3 or somewhere in that range, but only reflecting the part that's coming this year, so I don't know what's customary, if that's the way it's normally done or not.
So what, through the 5-year plan, we're gonna be carrying 231,844. That's the total cost of the lease agreements for all the equipment that is gonna be leased. If you look at if you go looking through the columns, you'll see number 2 is the DPW roof. You'll see, number 7, evacuator trailer, of $32,025. You'll see SCBA replacement, phase 1 through 6 at $26,000 the first year, 52 the next, 52 the next, 52 the next, 52 the next. So one of the things that, what I'm looking at is usually we borrow up to about $350. We're not even getting to that mark this year, and we're also, because of, we are fortunate that we do have some free cash, which is designed for one-time purchases, but also the Arpa funds, which allows us to spend money on infrastructure purchases, which, you know, if you look at the total amount to be spent this year, $1,552,356, that is the most money we've invested in capital in all the years I've been here. And other than a bond for the fire truck at 800 and something thousand, that's the most we're spending without going on an override, which, you know, the truck is on a debt exclusion, but most of this is all money that's going to be one-time spent, and the carryover is the 231. So actually, we're in good shape going forward. It allows us flexibility next year and the year after, because every year more stuff will keep dropping off. So we'll be able to replace a lot of this, but through this, you know, through the federal grants, we're actually having an opportunity to really catch up on our equipment and put the town in a really good position for the next 5 to 7 years on major equipment like, you know, backhoes and stuff. I mean, the police cruisers and the fire truck should give us about 10 to 15 years. All of that equipment will be within, you know, reasonable time frame. And, you know, when they bought all the equipment back in the 90s, they've outlasted their life, and we've been able to maneuver them for a long time. But with the new pumper we have and the tower truck, this is the last piece. We've also got updated ambulances. The fire department, as far as equipment is concerned, other than a brush truck for later on, I think that is in real good shape. The police cruiser rotation program has been working out phenomenal. We're not spending a lot of money on repairs. When the cars get to that point, we're getting rid of them, so they're not costing us a lot of money, and they're still under warranty, most of them, for repairs, so we're not having to keep putting money out. As that comes to that mark, we're getting rid of them, and we're getting decent money on a trade-in, so, you know, we're not really losing. Before, the cars were falling apart to the point where I think we were welding things to get them stickers. So we've come a long way, and, you know, and Robinson Broadhurst does really help this community out. You have to thank them for the stuff they do, the equipment they buy us, and, you know, just throughout the community. So, anyone else have any other questions? Ms. LaBrie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 questions. First off, the purchase of 70 Pleasant Street for the library, that's $70,000. Is that like Robinson Broadhurst money or anything that we need to get approval of before we can use it for this other purpose?
So it was money remaining from a borrowing done by the town.
Okay.
But that said, it would have to be voted to be reappropriated, but that will happen organically when this list goes before annual town meeting.
Understood. 1 second. The only other item that I'm concerned about is the, under DPW, the road paving supplemental. Personally, I don't feel that paving roads is a good use of free cash. I would like to see if there is, can we borrow some of that? is there any other way to, I have no doubt that it needs to be done. I just don't like using free cash for something that's going to start crumbling in a couple of years. One-time expense, one-time money kind of thing.
So we could do a borrowing for that. You could also use ARPA, which, you know, I know we've kind of tried to make a commitment that that we're going to try to use those funds to create other opportunities. And so in this instance, like you said, roads are just one of those things where you have to do it, and they have a certain lifespan, and there's not much you can really do about that. But we could fit that into a borrowing pretty comfortably.
Okay, that would be my only suggestion, to look at that one. Everything else looks, you know, as Chairman Barbaro said, this is my first time on the Capital Planning Committee, but I've been involved in the fringes of the process, and it seems like it's always been pulling hair out time because there's so much that we need and a very small piece of pie available to fill those needs. Looking at the initial proposal of everything that needs to be done, the moving a couple things off the table for this year makes sense. The Blair Square, see if we can get some funding there. And then the salt shed, no doubt that it's needed, would make it easier down there, but again, it's not something that is an emergency such as the DPW roofs. So I thank you. This is a very good list. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I just ran some quick math, and if we shifted the supplemental road paving to a 5-year borrowing, it would be about a $35,000 a year impact. So if that's something that the committee would like to do, I can certainly make that change.
Thank you.
Just another question, I still haven't gotten to my comment yet, but the 70 Pleasant Street, I thought we learned last week that was a non-issue. Is that back on the table?
Yeah, so that had changed. The next morning, I'd called the realtor and kind of asked what the situation was, and in so many words, the realtors, you know, if you ever purchase property, realtors will have you believing that there's 30 people lined up to buy it from under you, and they try to get you to move. And I had, in so many words, explained that we can't move because by law, we have to do this in May, otherwise call a special town meeting, which I don't think there's much of an appetite to do. Not at least for a one-off item. So with that understanding in place, all of a sudden the roads kind of opened up, and it seemed a little bit more like there isn't quite as large of a backlog. There is some interest. There are some other people that are interested in the property, but I don't think realistically someone's going to come in and buy it tomorrow. Now that said, somebody could come in and buy it in March or April or early May. So all we can really do at this point is do our best to keep going through the motions if it's something that the community's interested in pursuing and bringing to a town meeting vote, and sort of hope that it's still there in May. There are some minor things that we can do that would give the seller some assurances. Among them, putting it on the agenda for the selectmen meeting coming up on the 14th and having the selectmen, vote a letter of interest or a letter of support that in some effect says, we do have an interest in exploring this as a community. However, it's contingent upon a town meeting vote. And then the redevelopment authority on the 28th would be a discussion about whether or not they would entertain putting up deposit on the property to kind of hold it and give the seller some other assurances. The catch on that is commercial properties, you're typically supposed to put about 20 down to hold it, 20%. And I'm trying to negotiate that down to 5. And the other issue is that it more than likely would be non-refundable. And so that's, there's an element of risk there, but it's kind of up to the redevelopment authority. And if it's something that they'd be interested in pursuing, which Mr. Barbaro is also on the redevelopment authority, but he's one of 5. So they basically just wanted to see some type of minor commitment of what we can do and what we can make between now and May. And so we're going to be doing that in the meantime in the interest of trying to keep us in play in terms of purchasing the property. But then, at the end of the day, it's up to the Winchendon voter.
Thank you. So my comment is about ARPA and how the funds, as part of Finance Committee, when I, was told that there were $3.2 million in funds available for a variety of reasons, and obviously we've used some of that money, I had this vision that we could accomplish a major project in town with those funds, infrastructure project. I mean, I know everyone talks about the need to replace the water main from Ashburnham into Winchington. That would not cover that. When the funds were all there, that wouldn't cover the full amount, but it would have made a sizable dent in that project and given us something that would have been a move the needle, change type of project. And obviously, since that time, a fair amount of the funds have been used, and they're all within the guidelines. I completely understand that. But my question is whether they're used, none of them are used incorrectly, so I don't want to state it wrong, but are they used the best way? And if we go through with the $490,000 here, it brings that available ARPA fund to, I think you said 1.2 million, so we're 60-70% of the way through those funds without having a, for lack of a better term, game-changing infrastructure in the town. And do we really want to continue to, and again, not suggesting any of them are used incorrectly, but do we really want to continue to use these funds this way rather than trying to do something that's more of a game changer for the infrastructure for the town? That's my comment.
If I might, I understand your concern about projects. I think you can look at the water line main from Ashburnham to here is about $6 million plus. If you were to plug the 3 in, you'd be asking 2,000 people to carry $3 million in boring, which ain't gonna happen. You're not, with the water rates being as they are, there was absolutely no way, I would guarantee, that the public, the 2,000 water rate payers, would be taking a 20-year note on top of the other additional stuff that needs to be done through the water to carry. I think you look at the upcoming projects that are going on. We have the Central Streets being done, water and sewer lines. That's a project is that going to be used ARPA funds, or are we using the bond that we already authorized?
We're using the bond that was authorized.
So that bond's going to come due come spring, the water and sewer, and that's $1 million between the two. So we're already funding $1 million in repairs to the water lines. Now you would be asking, and I understand your point, but you'd be asking the small amount of water users and the very, to grab that additional $3 million. And as a water user, I could rest assured tell you I can't afford to grab that debt. But the way we're using the funds in a different manner allows us to use these in more practical, long-term use for the community when we have such needs, and still hold about $1.5 million in case we need to use it in different areas. So just my 2 cents on that particular thing. But I'd like to, I haven't heard from Garrett, so let me hear from him. Hello, Garrett. Did we lose him? Okay.
Oh, he's coming.
I think I'm sorry. I don't want to do much, Mike.
What did you say, sir?
Garrett, can you hear us?
He's having an issue with his mic.
Oh,
Okay. I can't see him because the
Yeah.
thing's in the way. The,
oh, his screen's not on either way.
Yeah.
okay, well, we're waiting for him. Ms. LaBrie, you have some?
Well, just, you know, Doug makes a very valid point, because almost every family, I think, that gets a tax refund in the spring, and then they look at that amount and they say, wow, you know, we can do a big thing with it. And then I know, speaking for myself and my family, then it's, okay, well, once in a while we do the big things, but often it's, let's take care of a lot of small things. It's a good point, and obviously that water main is going to be a big issue. It is a big issue. Question to the town manager, would that be an acceptable use of ARPA funds, first of all?
What's proposed?
The, putting it towards the water main work.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if at this time we're ready to jump into that work. We're having the water rate study done. We've got a lot of catching up to do when it comes to how we handle our water and sewer rates. I've said this before, you know, I'm on private water and sewer, but I think that it's important to everyone in town, whether you're on water, sewer or not, that the water infrastructure works. So it's a valid thing to do it with. I'm just not sure that now is the time. And then the response to that would be, well, when's the next time we're going to have $3-point-something million lump sum? Probably never. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a catch-22.
Right, I mean, I think at this point, it's food for thought for the future.
Sure.
I think with or without this 490,000, we've spent a significant amount of the funds, and it really wouldn't be practical
Right.
today, but I don't want to lose sight of something that is going to have to be addressed at some point.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I know that, you know, we're still waiting on Congress to figure out what they want to spend money on. There's still a lot of bills pending. I'm hopeful that some more infrastructure money comes through, which, again, I like to think about bridges and road repairs, because that seems to be where the president seems to be moving, and we can use some bridge and road repairs. But that being said, is Garrett got his microphone fixed?
I'm going to call him in on speakerphone on my phone,
Okay.
and that should do it. Hey, Garrett, can you hear me?
Barely, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'm holding you up to my microphone if you want to comment on the plan.
I mean, I reviewed the plan. I didn't really see anything that was too egregious. You know, I thought everything was well presented, and, you know, I don't see an issue with what's being presented.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may, Garrett, what are your thoughts on the supplemental road paving, going out for borrowing on that rather than using the free cash?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
The question was what your thoughts were on the supplemental road paving, if you had a preference between using free cash or doing a borrowing?
I don't have a preference on either. I think whatever's in the best interest of our budget moving forward.
Okay. All right, thank you. Give me a call if you want to say anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you. So adding the 35,000 would bring up to the commitment of funds from the town operating budget would be 256,844.
And what's the max?
We usually max out about 350 to 360.
Okay.
So we're well under the cap, of what we've been, you know, our borrowing.
And it leaves that little extra in free cash as well.
And it leaves that little extra in free cash as well. So I'm going to go around. Which do you prefer to have the free cash go into the road repair, or do you want to add it onto the borrowing? Get a sense of the board.
I think from my standpoint, free cash would make more sense. That's not really a well, no road is a long-term repair in this, where we live, right?
Right.
Yep.
Myself, I'd like to just pay it off one and done. Normally, we don't do that, but, you know, we've had conversations about trying to do a long-term bond for road repairs. And, you know, I just, at this point, don't want to continue to add on more debt. It frees us up for next year to look at some more things to do, you know.
Okay.
So that's my opinion, and Garrett doesn't, you know, he's, well, one way or the other, so.
Yeah, okay.
I guess your opinion matters, so.
You know, that's okay. Did I just understand you correctly, looking at some sort of long-term plan on the roads? If I remember, we talked about it at one point, you know,
Yep.
setting aside X amount for our own budget money each year. You know, we get the Chapter 90, which is never enough. Is that something in the works, or something that we could look into, like we just created the OPEB and the stabilization, you know, create a way to put X amount of money aside each year for road repair, some such?
Yeah. Can we look at, maybe coming back in the, over the summer, can we look at what it would cost for $1 million bond for road repairs?
Like how far that would get you?
How far that would get me? And probably a 10-year, let's look at a 5 and a 10-year note. The average road on a repave is 10 years. But if we could do $1 million worth of roads over a 2-year, and phase it in over 2 years, so 500 one year,
Yeah.
500 another, I think we'd be able, and on top of Chapter 90, that would give us close to $1 million a year. I think we could get better, the conversation was, can we get better bids? I believe we could, because we'd be locking someone in for a 2-year, $1 million a year
More roads, yeah.
for roads. Do you
Okay.
think you can look at that for maybe the summertime?
We can get some data, and Director Croto has recently been talking about potentially going out for an updated road scan, because the one that we do have is, I think, about 5 years old at this point. Brian, is that right? Yep. So I think that'll give us a little bit of some fresh insight as well in terms of what we're actually up against, and, you know, utilizing real conditions. And in addition, just to come back to building some of that into our budget, I would like to start doing that, probably starting small, if not this year, the next, and then trying to ramp it up every year thereafter. So we'll see where that goes.
Sure, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I remember at our last meeting, we talked about the scan and how old it was and such like that. And I think we said it was about $5,000 for a new scan. Is that correct?
I think it was 25,000.
25. I dropped it to. Okay. I still feel that would be money well spent.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Considering the amount, the miles of road that we have and such. So, okay, good. Thank you.
And Brian is working to get a lower number on that, so it might be a little bit under that.
Is that something?
Oh,
Go ahead, Brian.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. One more time.
Price today to scan the entire town for 9,100.
9,100.
Okay,
It's a little bit better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a lot better.
okay.
Good job.
I talked them down a little bit.
A little bit, yes. Is that something that they give like multiple town discounts? If Ashburnham wanted the same thing done, or Templeton or something like that, and multiple towns could go to this company and say, hey, you got 2 towns worth, what can you do for us for a price, kind of thing? I don't know.
Sometimes there's a little bit of an economies of scale there. We could ask around and see if,
That's the term I was looking for, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Brian, you're going to use Chapter 90 money for that?
I don't plan to, because of the number at 9,100, I plan to use it out of my budget. I wanna try to save my chapter 90 money for paving roads,
So,
because I need every penny I can get to put into the roads.
so you have money in your budget to pay for that?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't hear that.
I said you have money in your budget to pay for that.
I believe so. I'm still, reviewing it and seeing what the best choice is for the funding of it. But I feel that the price is a lot better than the 25,000 that was first proposed.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, just one more. Talk about the two pieces of equipment for the enterprise funds. We have a vehicle for the transfer station that's coming out of retained earnings, and we have a vehicle for sewer and water where we have to take funds from some other place because that particular enterprise fund has been running in the red for multiple years. It would seem to be logical to fix the problem of that enterprise fund running in the red year after year after year before we spend a lot of additional money on that. Just my take on it, and I don't know where we are. I think maybe it's a subject for a different day, but something has to be addressed there.
So, we're using ARPA funds to buy the equipment. There was presented to the Board of Selectmen 2 years ago now, a 5-year plan of rate raising to bring the water and sewer plant up to fiscal stability and to turn a profit. That sits with the Board of Selectmen. I think it was 8% for water and sewer and 6% per year for the water and 8% for the sewer. A hefty increase, but that will bring the enterprise, both enterprise funds back to fiscal stability. And that sits before the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, it does. However, I would hesitate personally to say that those rates, as significant as they are, would bring us to fiscal stability in those accounts. The continuing costs of delivering the services are rising. When those percentages were first mooted, it was based on cost at that time. So whether that same thing holds true today, don't know. I see the board have a lot of work ahead of us this year. Once we get the water and sewer study back, we're looking into whether it makes sense to bring maintenance of the water treatment plant back in-house. So we're looking at a lot of different things. So that is a hot button. But yeah, I agree. It's a house that needs to be renovated. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, does anyone have more questions about the capital improvement plan at this time? Okay, I asked the board, do you want to go line by line, or do you want to go as a package?
Is there a preference as far as legal precedents?
Generally speaking, we push the whole thing as a package. We have always been pushing it as a package, recommended by the town manager, and to show how everything is being paid for, which is fully laid out in front of you.
Okay.
So,
Excuse
Let me
me.
just finish. So I would be presenting this to the, if it goes through here, I would be presenting this next Monday night to the Board of Selectmen and next Tuesday to the Finance Committee, and ask that if you have time, you would like to sit and well, I'll see you, and we'll see both of you anyway, but, you know, it would be nice to have someone else in the audience just in case. For moral support, but normally speaking, we do move this as a whole package. As I stated in the beginning, this would be the most money that we've spent on capital that doesn't affect the tax rate of the community, which is important at this time. You know, with all the other funds available, it allows us to do things. And again, I would thank Mr. Croto and Mr. Smith for, Chief Smith for going out and getting us some grant money to lessen the cost on this equipment. You know, it does make it easier to present to the community when you say we've gotten $175,000 from different places. And as always, our 911 Enhanced Fund always pays for something for the police department, so we're grateful for that fund to keep that vehicle rotation moving. And it's open and transparent, which it wasn't years ago, so. And also, hopefully, we can get the library going again. You know, that would be awesome to have that piece of property fall into your hands, and then we could slowly build it out and get where we need to be for the kids. It also gives us more space in the long run, which you've pointed out, so. With that being said, I leave it up to the board. Ms. LaBrie.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Should we decide to present this to the BOS and the FinCom as a package, when this gets to town meeting floor, will it be also presented on town meeting floor as a package? And will the individual items be up for town meeting discussion and/or amendment?
So in my past experience in other communities, we did it as a package. And then people could pull individual items if they wanted to and amend the package. But from what I've seen in past warrants here, it seems like they were done individually, but this is a pretty long list. And so if each of these are their own individual warrant article, we're going to be there a while. So I would leave it to the board. I know that legally you can do it in block, but I don't know if it's a matter of community preference.
Okay, and I'm fine, I think, with presenting it as this is our bottom line money, this is what we plan, as long as there is an opportunity for town meeting attendants to, ask questions about it and perhaps amend it on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would think we would do the same thing when we do all the other departments, is go through the line items, and if someone wants to put a hold on, we'll just do the same thing we do with all the departments, say, DPW roof, 300,000. I'm sure
Yeah.
there'll be people asking for explanations, we can explain it, move down the list. I think that way it gives a nice, clean outlook to it,
Yeah.
and shows the support of hopefully the boards will support this, that
Right.
we're all behind it and moving forward, and again, it would
And
be
very transparent.
very
where the
transparent on
money's
how
going
it's
and
being
stuff.
funded.
Yeah,
So I think that would probably work better,
okay.
and then allow us to move it the whole package, and then let people speak to each
Sure.
individual line item.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we'd be here till
Yeah, I would